Right. Hello, kids and kidettes. Well, now that Ursula's done, I can finally start telling you what my plan is for my play. In fact, I spoke to Matt yesterday, and he's behind me, which is awesome. What more could I want? Now, it being me, there's a lot of, well, background information you need to know. It involves Greek myths quite a bit, and so I've decided a good way to put everyone on the same level is to basically tell you these myths, so we all know where we are. Of course, some of you know them, and if you don't want to hear them again, you can simply do this. When I'm going to be telling the stories, I will be wearing a hat. If I'm not wearing the hat, then you can listen. Let's start. Basically, my plot is the story of Orpheus in reverse. Orpheus was one of the greatest musicians ever. His lyre was said to be able to charm the birds from the trees. He fell in love with a wood nymph called Eurydice. Eurydice, being a wood nymph, hated all violence and blood and refused to have meat at the wedding feast. This insulted the gods, who demanded the meat sacrifice, and so a snake was sent, which bit Eurydice on the heel, killing her. Orpheus was distraught, and thus decided to do a very foolish thing. He went into Hades to go and get his love. He met Charon, the keeper of the boat that crossed the river Styx, and, not having any gold, was about to be thrown in the river before he played him a song, and thus was taken over. He met Cerberus, the three-headed dog. He played him a song. The dog fell asleep. There he saw Hades with his wife Persephone. I'll come back to Persephone in a bit. Hades was going to let Orpheus stay in the underworld for all eternity, so Orpheus played him a song. Hades felt bad, and decided he would make a deal with the human. He said, "I will let you leave with your love, but you must do one thing. You must travel the entire way back, and you must never once look back. If you do, she is mine for all eternity." Orpheus made this deal. He went past Cerberus again, hearing footsteps behind him. He went past Charon again, hearing the footsteps. But as he exited the cave which led into Hades, he didn't hear any footsteps. He truly believed Hades had tricked him, and so he turned around. Eurydice was a foot away from the exit, as she was sunk back into the darkness, never to be returned. Orpheus went insane. He interrupted the Bacchae, which we know is a bad thing. The followers of Bacchus, they ripped him apart, and his head, still singing, was thrown on top of his lyre and floated down the river. Orpheus, though mortal, had demigod blood in him, and thus never died. They say he's still singing to this day. Okay, so as I said, my story is basically Orpheus in reverse. A human is in Hades. Again, why he's in Hades will be explained. He makes a deal with Hades. Yes, the place is the same name as the god. It's weird, don't worry about it. He makes a deal, which says, if I can manage to bring the woman I love back down with me, the two of us must be able to go on to the next world. But she must do it willingly. So, the human spends a year preparing himself. In this time, Daedalus was one of the world's greatest inventors. He created two famous myths that we know of. One, the story of the Minotaur. Daedalus was the one who created the labyrinth, but was kept prisoner while doing it. Of course, when Theseus managed to not only beat the labyrinth, kill the Minotaur, but also steal the king's daughter, the king wasn't the happiest. He locked Daedalus and his son Icarus up in a tower. Daedalus was not going to accept this, though, and saw the birds landing on his windowsill and thought, they have a good idea there. So, over the years, he gathered the feathers and the wax from his candles. He made two pairs of wings, which he attached to his back and his son Icarus's. He told his son, "Do not fly too close to the sun. The sun did not listen. Icarus flew too high, and the wax melted. Icarus fell to his death in the ocean, and Daedalus was distraught. He then went on to tutor Hercules. It's amazing how connected these stories are. Anyway, back to my story. Daedalus is also in Hades, and decides to, well, pull a Pygmalion. Pygmalion was a Greek king who was incredibly lonely. He honestly believed he would never find love. He was also a bit of a sculptor, and was able to make out of stone a woman. This woman was the most beautiful he had ever seen, and it broke his heart knowing that he would never have her. Aphrodite overheard him and made the woman real. So Daedalus pulls a Pygmalion for our hero and makes a woman out of clay and breathes life into her. The Jewish people have a legend of the golem, which is basically a giant clay figure with a scroll put in its head, which gives it its orders. It is believed the golem would protect Jerusalem. And this is where we get the idea of, the rock monsters and everything. Anyway, so Daedalus makes basically a female golem for our hero, who practices his lines, which he's going to use to bring his true love back to the underworld with him. Unfortunately, it is not the woman he loves, and he treats the golem terribly cruelly, in fact going as far to call her Dreidel. Dreidel, 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 I made you out of clay, and when you're done ready, with dreidel I will fly! Yeah, he's not a nice guy. So, Dreidel, as she is called, runs to her father, Daedalus, and says, "Papa, he'll never love me." Daedalus basically cashes in a debt he has with Hades and says, "I will give you one day. You too will go back to the human world, and if you can talk to him, and if you can convince him to love you and to come back with you, and to ignore his love, Hades will let you go." And that basically is the plot of my play. Also, Eurydice is still there. She's been there for the last 2,000 years. She's gone mad with the grief. She dances. Every night she does the same dance to the music of her dead husband to be. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to actually write this play. I'm going to do my best. It's not going to be particularly big. It's probably going to be similar staging to Ursula, with the two rostrums. There's not going to be any scene changes, really. It's going to be fluid. It's going to be quite hard. But I hope, oh Lord, I hope it's going to be fun. So there you go. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep looking at the Facebook group. I'm going to try and keep you up to date. Enjoy. Hades once kidnapped a young girl. Her name was Persephone. She too was beautiful. He intended to keep her for all eternity down in the underworld. Her mother begged him to return her to the world above. Persephone was so beautiful that the trees bloomed and the animals, well, they loved her. He eventually made a deal. For 6 months, she would reside in the underworld with him. For 6 months, she may return to the world of the living. For the 6 months she is down in Hades, we have winter. When she returns, the plants celebrate and burst into greenery. Greek legend is strangely beautiful.